Hello guys, this is a review of the movie Cutting Class, starring Brad Pitt, Donovan Leitch, and Schoelen. Brad Pitt plays Dwight. This is Brian, played by Donovan. And this is Paula, played by Jill. The movie follows Paula's character, and let me start out by saying that this movie had terrible reviews, but I do not agree with them, and I'll tell you why later. So Paula's a good girl. She gets good grades, she listens to her dad, she does everything she's supposed to do, even though she does hang out with the wrong crowd. She hangs out with the cool kids, the kids that are always getting into trouble, always causing a mess, and she's the girlfriend of this jock character named Dwight. He's very disrespectful, very outrageous in everything that he does, bossy towards her, manipulative. And last but not least, Brian is a young guy who had been in a mental institution for a few years, if I'm not mistaken, for killing his father. And this movie, the whole movie plays out like a Scooby-Doo type of episode. It starts with Paula's dad going on a hunting trip, and he gets shot by an arrow by a mysterious killer, and that's where the whole Scooby-Doo vibe comes in. Nobody knows who the killer is, and that's what we're trying to find out. Everybody is obviously led to believe that it's Brian because he just got out of a mental institution, so the whole cliche, the whole stereotype, not stereotype if he actually murdered somebody, but he does have his reasons. And then there's this janitor who is always saying creepy things, always making us wonder if it's actually the janitor, because I cannot believe that he actually gets away with the things that he says. I'm like, in real life, you know what, actually, speaking about real life, this movie might, like, according to what other people say, it's very cheesy, very non-realistic, exaggerated. But I work in schools, and let me tell you that while they don't do like these crimes and stuff like that, I'm not saying anything like that obviously, but the acting of these characters, it's fitting, it's believable. Maybe you have forgotten what it's like to attend school, or maybe you attend a very different type of school with a completely different environment, but they don't act very different from the kids nowadays, and that's surprising because it is a movie from the 80s. So many years have gone by, but still, I found it to be very fun. And funny. Like, okay, you take it for what it is. This is a slasher movie. The 80s. The volcano had erupted with a whole bunch of slashers. You know the names. I don't have to go through them, but I just need to say one thing. Nightmare on Elm Street. And this movie delivers on that. The kills are so awesome. There's a scene in particular, this is the funny side of the movie, where Paula's dad, like I said, he had been shot. He's in this swampy area. The kids are going on a little trip, and the science teacher is showing off that he knows every single organism that lives in that area or something like that. And the Paula's dad is like, help me, very loud. And one guy's like, whoa, nature has, like, I think he says nature's calling or something like that. And the science teacher's like, actually that's a bullfrog crying out for its mate. So you could imagine seeing the guy, like, the science teacher stepped on his stomach and he cried for help, and that was his explanation. Apparently he knows, like, every single organism there. And that's just one of the very funny scenes. It has a lot. And the kills, like I said, the kills are amazing. There's a scene when Brad Pitt's character Dwight, he's supposed to be taking a gym class, but he doesn't change into his PE clothes, so the gym teacher tells him, you have to come tomorrow for a one-on-one or else you fail. And you have to take into consideration something. It's that Dwight is not a very smart kid. the only thing that he has going on for him is basketball, and he screws that up because I'm sorry that I'm backtracking, but his dad invites this major league guy, I guess, to come in the hopes that he could get him a scholarship for a basketball team in college, but he screws it up by getting into a fight, and he's not really like, you know, into anything in particular. He just wants to have fun and go out with Paula, but he screws that opportunity and the guy leaves. And so the gym teacher knows this. He knows that he has to pass his classes in order for him to graduate and have a future. So he tells him, tomorrow, one-on-one, here, bring your clothes. And he tells him that the next day that they meet, and he's already over it. Dwight's character is not having any of it. He throws a fit. He throws things around, literally. And as he's passing by, he caresses the American flag. As a little bit of foreshadowing. And then a minute later, if not seconds later, the gym teacher is hopping on the trampoline, and Dwight's character headed to the locker rooms to change into his PE clothes, supposedly, and somebody grabs a pole. You know how the American flag has a little pointy thing at the top? Well, somebody grabs that. We don't know who it is, but somebody grabs it. And with it, they stick it underneath the trampoline while the gym teacher is jumping on it and falls stomach first into the pole. Just shut up. And lies there lifeless. That's a very cool murder scene. There's a lot of cool scenes, and the whole movie, like I said, nobody really knows what's going on. Near the last part, I could say like midway, a little more towards the end of the movie, Dwight takes his car to the mechanic, and what's his name? Brian is working on it. And he remembers the time, because they're friends. That's something that I forgot to mention, but they used to be friends, but they're not friends anymore. They have this relationship where Brian is always insisting, hey, we could be friends, you know, friends forever. That's what we are. And Dwight's like, no, I don't want to hang out with you. And they don't really explain why, but there's this tension going on between Brian and Dwight, not just because of the murder, which really affected Dwight. Oh my goodness, I'm just like an epiphany. I just realized that probably the reason why Dwight is always upset at Brian and he's always being mean to him and making fun of him is not just because he likes Paula as well, or he gives us the idea that he likes Paula, but because Dwight was the guy who basically gave him the idea of how to kill his dad. So let me go back to the scene that I was telling you guys about. They're fixing Dwight's car, right? And he tells them, oh, you remember you told me lefty goosey, righty tighty, something like that. They're like, oh yeah, I remember. They have this little friendship moment. And we realize later when Paula takes some type of documents that I guess are where they wrote down what happened during the murder of Brian's parents, and he says, this is what Brian said, read it to me. And Dwight's like, oh yeah, a friend taught me how to cut the brakes off and stuff like that. And he's like, did he say what friend? And Dwight's like, no, he said one never tells on a friend, or something like that. That he was like, you know, not going to betray him and snitch him out. That friend is obviously Dwight, because Brian doesn't really have that many friends. It's not hinted that he did. They were very good friends, and he was the one that taught him the move that ended up killing his dad. And there's another scene later on where Brian actually goes over to, by the way, spoilers ahead, everybody knows that. He goes over to Paula. If you haven't watched it, well, maybe you should probably watch it and then come back. Paula's in her room, in her bathroom. She's washing her hair, and Brian sneaks up on her and tells her, I'm not the killer, I'm not gonna kill you, you have to help me. And he shows her a picture. There's this counselor named Mrs. Connaught that everybody hates, but nobody really says it except for the gym teacher. You have to watch it. It's just a funny scene that I cannot get into detail because the video might cut off. But during her murder, the killer grabbed her head and slammed it on the printing machine. And Brian takes one of the copies and shows it to Paula as evidence that it wasn't him, and he acts like he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, look, it even has the hand of the killer. And something very important is that the killer has a ring on his finger, and that very ring is one that was traded from Dwight's hand, because Dwight's the owner of that ring, to Paula in exchange for Paula's key to open the cabinet and find the file of Brian, and among other things. So Paula is like, oh my gosh, it was Dwight, that's his ring. So they go over to him, and he's at the school, remember that. And then that's when you find out that it was actually Brian all along. He kills the math teacher who was not able to solve this problem. He kind of plays this jigsaw, like the Saw movies, this jigsaw game, and the teacher ends up losing, so Brian kills him. That's when Paula's like, you tricked me, how could you? And she's running away with Dwight. They get into a fight, and at the very end Paula manages to kill him. And as if it weren't enough, the irony of it all, she's going back home, I suppose. She's driving with Dwight, and they almost run her dad over. He manages to survive, and he's going down the hill. He goes down the hill pretty fast because they're driving at a very fast speed, but yet the dad makes it down. They almost run him over, and he's like, Paula, are you cutting class? Because that's the one thing that he told her not to do ever, and that's why the movie is called Cutting Class. Like I said, I read terrible reviews. I would say on average like 2 stars out of 5, and I do not understand why, because this movie, like I said, it delivers. It gives everything a movie like this could give. It was straight to DVD, which also shocked me. I just don't get it. All these very big movie stars, look at him in the cover. He was not the protagonist. He's one of the main characters, but probably like third after Paula and Brian. But you never know where life takes you. It also has Roddy McDowall and Martin Mull. I hope I pronounced their name right. This was a very pleasant surprise. It was a fun movie. I had a very good time. Like I said, the kills were pretty fun to watch and memorable, I would say. This isn't a Silence of the Lambs movie, but it delivers in what it says that it's gonna deliver. I wasn't disappointed one bit, and would definitely recommend it if you're into the subgenre slasher, or if you're in the whole overall genre of horror. You have to watch it. And even if you just want to have a good time, like, I don't know what movies I could compare these to, but just basically any 80s slasher. It's like, if you like those type of movies, if you like Scream, you'll like this one. You don't have to expect The Godfather every time you go to watch a movie. So I don't know why you would expect that from from Cutting Class. If you go there with the expectation of a regular 80s slasher, then you'll get your money's worth, assuming that you're gonna buy it. My rating would be probably a 7.5 or 8. We're gonna leave it at 8.5. No, I meant to say 8. A solid 8. No, 7.5. Sorry, 7.5 out of 10 in its category, of course. Thank you for watching.